Well, hello everybody, how are you doing today? I hope you're having a fine weekend, whatever. I don't actually know when this video is going to come out. I got a lot planned this weekend, so whatever. So I made an ingenious decision. For my 100th video, I released a Q&A, which I haven't actually seen how that video is doing yet, but I'm pretty sure it's doing very poorly. I mean, it's a Q&A. The only people who are actually going to watch it are people who have been with me for a while. Your average sort of asshole surfing the web is not going to click on a video. They don't care. They don't know who I am. So I decided that the next video after that video that I know is gonna fail should also be a video that's gonna fail. Like, who the fuck has even seen Oz at this point? A fucking hour-long HBO drama that came out in 1997. But you know what? Sometimes it's not about the views. Sometimes you just like talking about things that you like talking about. I like Oz. It's a really good show for the first half. But in all honesty, one thing I do like to do with these videos is kind of mix it up and use some characters everybody knows about and then other characters that people might not know that much about. So for every, rip-off comic book characters I use, where I have Superman and Hulk and all these different characters in that I know everyone is going to click on, I like to have one video where it's like, here's a bunch of dudes that nobody really talks about in these kind of videos. Just, here you go. Just something interesting to throw into the mix. And while my 30-something-year-old brain is kind of thinking, there's no fucking way anyone doesn't know who Anton Chigurh and Max Cady are. That's not possible. I do have to remember that many of the viewers who watch this channel are like in their late teens or early 20s. A lot of these movies and shows came out well before these people were born. So it's very possible they've never even heard of these fucking characters. And that is a goddamn travesty that I will not tolerate. So here we are. How are these psychopaths going to do if you throw them in the middle of the prison known as Oz? Easily one of the most terrible, violent, and dangerous prisons ever put to screen. Let's fucking find out. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. But I've wasted enough of your time. Let's get started. So how do I go about explaining Oz? There's this guy named McManus, right? And he's a really high-ranking person in this prison. And as a sort of experimental thing, he decides that he's going to attempt to rehabilitate all of the worst people in this prison. And his plan is to take all of the worst offenders from every single gang that he can. That's the black gang, the Hispanic gang, the neo-Nazis, the Italians, all the different gangs, take the most violent people, and then throw them into what is essentially just one big-ass room, and everything will just go swimmingly, and he'll be able to rehabilitate these absolute fucking monsters. He does not believe that will raise the murder rate of the prison to higher than the state of New York. Well, that motherfucker thought wrong, because that's exactly what happens. Look, you have to kind of put logical consistency aside a little bit for this show so that you can have a really fucking cool premise, which is basically all of the worst people you could possibly imagine being thrown in one room to just start killing each other. That's essentially what this show is about, and it is wildly entertaining. And I'm not kidding when I say that these are some of the most evil fucking people ever created. If you're a big fan of Game of Thrones and you watch that show and you're just like, oh god, Joffrey and Ramsay, they're so fucking evil. They're the most evil characters ever. I can't stand them. They make me mad just watching the show. You haven't seen Oz. I mean, there might be 3 characters in this whole show that are less evil than characters like Joffrey and Ramsay. There's a certain point you just kind of become numb to just how fucked up this show can get. Like, for instance, there's one scene where a man gets sodomized by another man with a spoon for his own sadistic pleasure, and a friend of mine saw that scene as a younger lad, and I was recommending the show to him. He's like, no, I can't watch that show. I'm like, why not? And he said, because it fucked me up when I was like an early teenager and I saw it and this guy gets sodomized with a spoon. And I was like, someone gets sodomized with a spoon in Oz? When is that? He's like, yeah, it's a fucking dude. He gets a spoon shoved up his ass and he carves out a section. And then he describes it to me and I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen. Oh, okay. What? Okay. I mean, I forgot about the scene's existence. A scene that permanently fucked this dude up that he still thinks about to this day, I completely forgot about because it wouldn't even be on my top 10 list of worst things that happens in this show. You literally just become numb to it after a while. These characters are fucking monsters, and the shit they do to each other is so entertaining. It sounds fucked up, but you gotta watch the show to understand what I'm talking about. You have characters like Schillinger, who is a super racist, murdering Nazi, played by J.K. Simmons, by the way, and also very big on prison rape. You have characters like Adebisi, who is a Nigerian drug-fueled madman who went to jail for butchering an FBI agent with a machete that was a crime that was considered so awful, they brought back the death penalty to New York City in the show. Adebisi is such a fucked up dude that he brought back the death penalty in New York. And he's also a big fan of prison rape. Look, guys, it's a fucking prison show. There's a lot of rape, okay? There's Ryan O'Reilly, who is a character that Littlefinger wishes he was. A Machiavellian genius of murder. He has the highest body count in the whole fucking show, and he's only actually personally killed 2 people because he just plays off people's fears and weaknesses and essentially gets people to distrust one another and gets them to kill each other for his own advancement or for the things that he wants to do. In fact, out of the 2 people that he actually killed himself, one of them was a very personal kill that he wanted to do himself because he had a serious issue with the person. Most of the people he kills, he doesn't actually have much of an issue with. He just does it for his own personal benefit. But the other person he killed personally was the mob boss of the Italians in New York City. He went out of his way to get a job in the kitchen so that he could put crushed up glass in his food every day, and slowly killed him over the course of several weeks and then months. And then eventually he started throwing up blood and shit, and they found out it was too late. He had glass and shit all cutting up his intestines and he was bleeding to death. The dude is a fucking genius of murder. And you know what? It's not even just him. It's kind of everyone. This show has some of the most creative ways to kill people I've ever seen. You know that saying they say in Scream? What's the line? It's something like, horror movies don't create killers, it makes killers more creative. That's bullshit. Oz makes killers more creative. At one point, there's a character who allows his fingernails to grow out super fucking long, and then he cuts them to the point of like really sharp spikes, and then he walks up, slices up a dude's face, gouges out his eyes, and basically kills him with super sharp fingernails, then cuts the fingernails off and flushes them down the toilet. No more murder weapon. And this show is just fucking filled with really smart criminals coming up with very interesting ways to kill people. Because most of the murder in this show is not just people running up and beating the fuck out of each other. It happens on occasion, but most of the time they have to get around like the existence of guards and their very strict schedules. They have to be smart about it. So I know a lot of people say this nowadays, but it's kind of like Game of Thrones in prison. If you want to survive in Oz, you can't just be violent and capable. You have to be really fucking clever. It requires more skills than just being good at killing. You need to be good at fighting, that's true, but you also need to be good at social interaction and being able to know who to piss off and who to ally yourself with and be able to make friends. You can't be on your own. You need to be able to make deals and negotiations with different people. You need to be liked by the right people, and you need to know when is the right time to take out adversaries who are coming after you. Because if you do it too openly or in a way that it pisses off some other people, then you're gonna have a whole other issue and then they're gonna fucking kill you. Oh god, I really like this show, guys. And it is so upsetting to me that everyone talks about Sopranos like it's the greatest thing. You know, Sopranos was not the show that actually kickstarted the whole villains as a main character thing. A lot of people say it's Sopranos. No, it was Oz. Oz came out first. That was HBO's first hour-long drama series, and then Sopranos came on afterwards. In fact, many of the actors who were in Oz left the show to go do Sopranos specifically, and the shows reference each other all the time. People need to give Oz its fucking props, man. Did a lot of cool shit. Sorry, rant. Continue back to what I was talking about. So what our survivors are going to have to do when put into Oz, more specifically Emerald City, is they're going to have to be able to make deals with the right people. Out of these people, there are several different groups. You have the neo-Nazis, the Mexicans, you have the black gangs, which are like the violent, like sadistic gangs, just like all the other gangs. And then you have the other black gang, which isn't really a gang, it's more like a group of Muslims who are like very anti-government, anti-white man, like sort of Malcolm X inspired sort of group. These are like the better black gang. These people are not particularly evil, and the leader of that gang, Saeed, is arguably the least evil character in the entire show. I think he might be the only character in the whole show that hasn't like murdered anyone. This group is where you start seeing gangs that are a little more principled and aren't nearly as chaotic as the black, Hispanic, and white gangs. Then you go on to the next one that's also kind of a lot more structured, which is the Italian Mafia. And again, they're not as chaotic and they'll work with any other group, and they're not built on any sort of racial prejudice or just hatred for other people. They just want money. So they're willing to work with anybody, but they're also willing to turn on anybody too. The only people they won't really go up against are other Italians. And then the last group we have isn't really actually a group, but it's basically your individuals, your how do you word it? Like your lone gunman sort of characters. These are like outsiders. These are serial killers and rapists and other types of characters that aren't specifically tied to any of the other groups, and they sort of stand on their own. This is the most dangerous group to be in, as you don't have a group to watch your back. So you really have to be smart if you're going to be in this particular group. That's incredibly important. And honestly, I can make this section 30-40 minutes long going over every single character that exists in Oz, but I think you basically get the point. There's a bunch of super evil characters that are all thrown in a room together and basically told to get along, and can't, obviously. And some people go about things a little more violently, some people go about things a little more cleverly. Being able to maneuver between all of these different characters and being able to know who to not piss off and who to get along with is going to be paramount in who will survive this particular challenge. So let's get on to said challenge. First up on the chopping block, we have Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. A character that I feel like most people should know. I feel like everyone in my normal life has seen this movie. I don't know how popular it is across the board, but it's a very good movie, so check it out if you haven't seen it. Also, it should be important to note that we're using the movie version, not the book version. I am aware that the book version is way more evil and fucked up than the movie version. Like, the book version sticks a live rat into a woman's vagina just to see it claw its way out of her body. He also slits a little boy's throat in an aquarium, and then when his parents are holding his body calling for help, he then poses as a doctor to go and pretend to help the little boy so that he can look in the little boy's parents' faces as they die, because he wants to see what real suffering looks like. Very fucking evil character. In the movie, really the worst thing he does is, a little bit of cannibalism. And I mean, who hasn't at least dabbled in that, right? So not nearly as evil. It should also be noted that there's this wide belief that all of his kills in the movie never actually happened due to the ending. This is not true. Both the director as well as the writer of the novel have come out and said, no, that was not what they were trying to get across, is that it didn't actually happen. That ending is the exact same ending that's in the book, and the book makes it a lot more clear that no, he did do those murders. It's just that everyone around him is so self-absorbed and shitty that they constantly confuse each other with one another. They're basically all puppets of the same sort of system. There's this whole thing that the book is about that the movie touches on but doesn't really. Basically throughout the movie you'll see that he constantly gets called the wrong name, and everyone that he works with is basically the exact same as him. Like, there's a scene where he freaks out about the fucking business card. It's like that iconic memeable scene where he just like sweats and freaks out and all the cars look the exact fucking same. That's sort of an ongoing thing that's in the movie as well as the book. And when he goes and tells the guy that he did all these murders, and the guy says, oh, I spoke to him the other day, it's not possible that you killed this person, that's not them saying that he didn't kill him. That's just another example of him and all these people being basically one and the same, and none of them really mattering. They're all as empty and self-absorbed and uncaring as the rest. And that's sort of like the point that the book and the movie was trying to get across. But a lot of people saw that ending and thought it meant that nothing ever happened. It did happen. It was all real, and honestly, at the end of that movie, he's probably gonna go to jail. So I just want to get those 2 points off the table. Now, once Patrick is clearly arrested at the end of that movie, and how is he going to do in the Emerald City of Oz? Really goddamn bad. So here's the thing about Patrick Bateman. He's a fucking loser. Not just a loser, but he's also a complete emotional train wreck. I mean, any little thing that doesn't go his way or that he doesn't like, he fucking breaks down and can't function in normal life. He has never at any point in the entire movie shown to use any form of tact or intelligence when interacting with other people. He straight up on multiple occasions tells people that he's a murderer, and the only reason why they don't notice is because they're so self-absorbed with their own shit that they just don't care about him. That's the whole thing that the movie was trying to get across. Not that he wasn't saying these things, but that these characters just don't fucking give a shit. He could literally say anything and it wouldn't matter. But in Oz, if he starts behaving in this same very erratic way, it's gonna trigger everybody, especially the insane super geniuses who live in this prison. These are characters that constantly have to walk this tightrope and interact with each other in a very careful and intelligent way. And the characters that don't do that need to be tough as fuck in order to survive. Literally, the first episode of Oz shows one of the toughest characters that is ever shown in the show is basically like the main character of the show for the first episode. And because of certain decisions he makes that are not the smartest, despite him being the toughest guy in the prison, the episode ends with him being burnt alive. Because how tough you are doesn't really matter here as much as the decisions you make and your social interactions with other people. And the fact is that Patrick does not have good social interaction abilities. He will not be able to devise who to ally with and who not to. And honestly, I don't think there's a whole lot he can offer these people. He's not shown to have any real skills. I mean, he's not even really good at covering up his murders. He just leaves a bunch of dead bodies in rooms and just fucks off. And other people come in and clean up the bodies for him. He murders a bunch of homeless people and defenseless women and people who aren't expecting it. Drunks and dogs, and he's a fucking serial killer. He's not a tough guy. So what do I think is going to happen when Patrick Bateman shows up at the prison? He's going to get fucking raped. I'm sorry to Christian Bale, but he's a cute dude. That's a good looking man, especially in his younger years, which makes Patrick Bateman a good looking man who is also a fucking weirdo and won't be able to function and interact with the other people in any way that's gonna make him not rapeable to them. Does that make sense? Like, I don't think he'll necessarily be murdered because I don't think he's a big enough threat to require being murdered. But I do think he's gonna turn into a prison bitch and likely be really badly raped, probably by Schillinger, seeing that he's like a white dude. And while Patrick is never shown to be racist, I don't think he's gonna have any issues with pretending to be racist so that he can survive under the umbrella of the neo-Nazis. But again, that is an umbrella that he will be raped under a lot. Like I said, it only requires 2 or 3 skills they actually have to survive in Oz, and Patrick doesn't have any of them. Next up, we have Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. And there's really not a very detailed description I can give you about Anton, mainly because he's a mysterious character on purpose. He's specifically written for you to know virtually nothing about him. The only things you know is that he's some form of hitman or some guy who is hired by people to get things done. He is completely morally reprehensible, and he's Hispanic. That's really all we know. At the beginning of No Country for Old Men, he is hired to go after and acquire this money for this big company or whatever. And then he just decides, you know what, nah, I'm gonna get the money for myself. And then the whole movie, he's just tracking down this money, killing all of his employers and literally anyone who gets in his way, even a ton of people that don't get into his way, as he goes through trying to get this money that's like $2 million. This was the 1980s. That's when that actually had value enough to murder a bunch of people. The main character trait I could say about Anton, and really the only one that truly exists, is his belief in fate. He has this very, very strong belief in fate that whatever happens, happens because it is deemed that way, and there's just no stopping it. There's just nothing you can do. And he sort of views himself, he never says this, but he kind of views himself as God. Like, the things that he deems will happen have to happen now because he deemed them that way. He will get the money because he deemed it so. If there's someone that he's talking to and he wants to kill that person, and that person's like, I'll give you I know where the money is, I'll get it for you right now and give it to you, just let me live. He will still not let that person live if he wants to kill them, because since he deemed that he's going to get that money, he believes he's going to get it without their help anyway. So he's going to kill them and still believe he's going to go get that money. At one point in the movie, he threatens a man that if he doesn't give him the money, he's gonna go kill his wife. The man refuses his offer, then eventually goes and dies some totally other way. Anton gets the money, and then after he gets the money and he's already succeeded in his goal, he goes to the man's house to kill his wife anyway. And he's like, why are you doing this? He's like, because I said I was gonna do it, and I deemed that to be your fate, and that will be your fate. Even after giving her another chance, he's like, all right, I'll flip this coin, and whatever it lands on, you can call it, and then I'll kill you or not. And he was gonna flip that coin with a total belief that it was gonna land on whatever was gonna deem her die, because that's how he works. He believes if he deems it, it will happen. And she refuses to call the coin, and he fucking kills her anyway. This is by far the most unique and interesting aspect of the character, other than just the amazing performance and general badass vibe that Anton has throughout the movie. But yes, overall, really awesome character. Now, how will he do if he finds himself in the prison of Oz? And this is sort of an interesting one, because I think it's going to basically mimic the story of Miguel Alvarez. So there's a character in Oz Alvarez named Miguel Alvarez. One of the best characters in the show, top 3 easily. It was basically this young Hispanic kid who gets arrested and then joins the Hispanic gang while he's in prison. But throughout the seasons, he starts to realize that he doesn't want to do this anymore. A lot of this is because he has a kid, but a lot of it is some other reasons too. But essentially, he doesn't want to be this gang member. And he goes against the Hispanic gang. This causes a multiple season long, like, almost running joke. It's not supposed to be funny, but I start to think it's funny, where the Hispanic gang send everything they have after him and constantly have just attempt after attempt after attempt on his life for him basically denying them. And time after time again, Miguel just happens to survive. Sometimes it's because he's just tough as nails. Sometimes it's just fucking pure luck, but he just keeps surviving. And the leader of the Mexican gang is just like, how the fuck is this dude not dead yet? And this goes over the course of several seasons. This is happening, and they just can't put this motherfucker down. And this is kind of the same thing that I think is going to happen with Anton, because Anton is not about to join the Hispanic gang. Anton betrays his own people for $2 million and goes on a massive killing spree. He's not a loyal type of character. And the Hispanic gang, more so than any other gang in the entirety of Oz, believe that if you're Hispanic, you join them. If you don't join them, something's wrong here. There's something wrong with you. You need to be a part of this gang. They're a lot more forceful of their ideas on people of their own race than pretty much any of the other gangs are. There's a lot of white characters that are not with the white neo-Nazi gang. There's a lot of black characters that are not with the black gangs. I'm probably forgetting someone because the show is kind of a revolving door of characters, but Miguel is really the only significant character in the whole show that's Hispanic and not a part of the Hispanic gang. And when he denies them, it causes shit. Anton is going to deny them because Anton is not going to go under the umbrella of anybody. He literally views himself as God. He's not serving anyone. And if he says that to the Hispanic gang and they try to kill him, he's gonna survive for a long time. Miguel Alvarez was a tough motherfucker, but Anton is literally like a trained killer. They're two completely different levels of badassery, and I don't think the Hispanic gang is gonna have an easy time going after Anton. Now, having said that, do I think they will be able to eventually kill Anton? Maybe. A lot of the reason why Miguel survived for as long as he did is because he was put in isolation for a long time. If he wasn't in isolation, he would likely be dead. So with Anton not being in isolation, I think that he'll probably survive a little bit less long, but longer than Miguel would have if he wasn't in isolation. Does that make sense? Like, they're gonna have to send a lot after him over and over and over again. And usually he would have a way out of this by making deals and negotiating with the other gangs and sort of making allies, but Anton doesn't really make allies. Again, Anton sees himself as above pretty much everybody else, and he doesn't really do negotiation ever. Multiple characters try to negotiate with him, and they make pretty decent arguments for why he should, and he just refuses. He deems it as fate, so that is what will be, and that's pretty much going to be the main thing that's going to get him fucking killed in Oz. Him not having anyone to get his back at any point. Like, Miguel was a beast, but he had some people that actually liked him. Anton's not going to have fucking anybody who likes him. So as fucked up as it is, Anton's going to die because he's Hispanic. Like, that's really the only reason. If you take away the fact that he's Hispanic and make him literally any other color and throw him in Oz, he'd probably do pretty well as just being one of those independent killer type people who are in the prison who nobody really wants to fuck with because it's not worth it. But as we see in the show, the Hispanic gang in particular don't like Hispanics not being with them and have an issue with that. So yeah, he dies literally because he's Hispanic. Super fucked up, but that is kind of the way it works in Oz. This shit is not Barbie Dreamland Fantasy World. Next up, we have Ray Shoesmith from Mr. In Between, a little Australian show that was way better than it had. Oh god, can I just say how much I love that I am making this fucking video. Most of the videos that I do, I pick characters that I like, but sometimes I throw in some characters that I'm kind of indifferent on. You know, I'm not super passionate about every single character or every single series that I talk about. It's just something I'm aware of or that I like a decent amount, but you know, I'm not in love with. But I really love crime series. Like, I love crime dramas and crime movies, and there isn't a single character on this list that I don't really like. And I really like Oz. I really like Mr. In Between and No Country for Old Men. This is good shit. I need to talk about this kind of shit more often. Anyway, who is Ray Shoesmith? Well, he's a hitman from a show called Mr. In Between. He is a hitman known as the Magician, who's just known to be able to get shit done. And you're gonna kind of hear that a lot, actually. I kind of said the same thing with Anton, right? Like, it's not just a hitman. It's just whatever crime thing you need done, you can hire Ray Shoesmith to do it, and he'll do it. And he kind of just puts morality and all aside and sees everything that he does as just a business transaction. And that's probably the most interesting thing about him. The basic code of Ray Shoesmith is you show him respect, he'll show you respect, and that's really all that matters. He has this very strange code of honor where if he's hired to kill a friend of his, he'll do it because that's just a part of the job. But at the same time, if a friend of his is hired to kill him, he's not going to take it personally. He's not going to have any sort of grudge afterwards. He just knows that this is a part of the business and that this is just what happens when you do these kind of things. In fact, at one point in the show, a friend of his is hired to kill him, and there's this whole thing where they go about doing it, and he's trying to kidnap him and bring him to this. It's a whole thing. Well, by the end of the episode, he murders the guy who hired his friend to kill him, and then when you think he's about to kill his friend for trying to kill him throughout the whole fucking episode, he doesn't. He's just like, hey, we want to go, let's go do something or whatever. And then they just leave, and that's that, because Ray knows how this world works. He knows that he was just accepting a job, and Ray has accepted jobs for killing his friends in the past, so it's not really a whole thing. He doesn't take this shit personally. And the show really isn't about anything. It's just a window into the life of this very interesting and unique criminal character as you see him go about his day-to-day life. Sometimes he'll do really fucked up shit. Sometimes he'll do really badass shit. Sometimes he'll just beat up a bunch of assholes who cursed in front of his daughter, and then he has to go to anger management sessions and infuriate this super liberal anger management counselor because he has this very old school sort of barbaric honor kind of mentality. And it's fucking great. This is a great show. Ray Shoesmith isn't talked about that much, although I feel like he is now because a lot of shorts of Mr. In-Between are being posted and going around YouTube, so people are getting more and more knowledgeable about his character. But his character is good enough that it should be up in that conversation of like all-time great criminals from TV, you know, like he should be up there with Tony Soprano in that same conversation. He's a fantastic character. So how would Ray Shoesmith do if he was sent to Oz? He would do fucking phenomenal. There's a bunch of things about Ray Shoesmith that's gonna really help him here. One, he's not just tough as nails, but he is a trained, very talented killer. Throughout the entire course of the whole show of Mr. In-Between, there isn't a single person who's really shown to be able to fight with him on par. There's one dude that's like twice his size who he fights with a kind of a bit, but for the most part, he can take out anybody in a fist fight. He's also good enough as a hitman to get around killing people in the most straightforward means, like someone like Patrick Bateman would be. Like at one point, he actually does go to prison in the show, and he creates prison napalm, which is heated jelly in a cup, and then he just splashes the heated jelly on this guy's face, and it just, because it's jelly, it sticks to the skin and it just burns his face like fucking acid that you can't get off. And he just walks away. Like he just walks up, poof, super casually walks away. That's it. He's capable of killing people, making the bodies disappear forever that no one can possibly find them. He can make kills look like accidents. He's skilled enough to kill people in a very short amount of time, so it's not really going to be a problem if someone walks in or something like that. Like, he's a trained hitman. It's what he's good at. But at the same time, because of his honor code and his general respectfulness to everyone that he comes across, he's really not going to start that many problems with that many people. He's going to be seen in the prison as someone who is not only very well liked, but very capable and very useful. I can see the Italians reaching out to him to do jobs. I could see the neo-Nazis reaching out for him to do jobs. I could literally see anyone coming up to him and saying, hey, I need something done. Can you do it for me? And regardless of how morally questionable it is, he'll do it, and he'll just look at it as just any sort of normal job. Now, is it possible that at some point somebody like the neo-Nazis might get pissed if he accepts a job to like the black gang or something? Yeah, that's possible, but there's other characters in the show that do similar things that kind of play both sides, and for the most part, the neo-Nazis don't get too uppity about it. You might get a couple of things here and there, but not really. But overall, Ray would mostly just mind his own business and only get involved when, one, people fuck with him personally, or two, people want to hire him for something. And I think that there's going to be an understanding in Oz that if he goes out and does something fucked up to your people, it's because someone hired him to do that. He is a tool at which to be used for other people, and honestly, he's so good at killing people and surviving surviving just in general, that it might not be worth going after him when the guy who hired him is really the major threat here. Because Ray is capable of literally taking on dozens of different people, and he pretty much knows any way that you're gonna go about trying to kill him, and he'll look out for those particular ways. Is he as smart as someone like Ryan O'Reilly or say Keller, who is also another character I haven't mentioned yet, who is incredibly intelligent when it comes to killing people in very unique ways? No, probably not, but I think his skill and experience in being a hitman means that really won't matter. He'll still be able to kind of see through a lot of what they're trying to do if they ever have any sort of issues with him. And if they do try to kill him, he'll likely be aware that that is a way that they could try to kill him. Like, they're not going to be able to kill him in a way that he hasn't already seen that way be used to kill somebody else in his line of work. So it'll be like this extra challenge they have to sort of get over in order to have him killed. So yes, I think Ray will be just fine. Last up, but certainly not least, we have Max Cady from Cape Fear. Now, this is the Martin Scorsese Cape Fear, not the Cape Fear, the old black and white Cape Fear. That's a good movie, I like it, but it was severely held back by the time period it came out in. Not like effects and shit, but basically there were a lot of rules back then of what you could and couldn't do on screen with in terms of like how evil a character can be and what they can do. And those rules didn't really exist when Martin Scorsese's version came out. So the Robert De Niro version of Max Cady just seems significantly more fucked up and evil than the original version. So that's the version I'm gonna go with. It's not the original movie's fault, it's just the time period. But overall, the newer Max Cady is a better version of Max Cady. That's the one we're going with. So who is Max Cady? Well, originally he was just some ignorant hick who beat and raped a young 16-year-old girl. There's no way that this video is not getting demonetized or something. That's a thing, right? They demonetize for saying so. Whatever, it's too late at this point. I've said rape like 6 times. Anyway, he gets arrested, he goes on trial, and his lawyer basically finds some evidence that means that maybe it might be able to get him off, and decides to hide the evidence because he just knows that this guy did it and he's a piece of shit and he felt bad about it. So he ends up going to prison for like 15, 20 years. I don't remember exactly. It's like around 2 decades. And while he's in prison, he decides to completely change who he is as a person. He starts reading a bunch of books, he gets educated, he starts working out a ton. He basically comes out as a physically perfect specimen of a human being who is also now a very highly educated super genius. And because he's a super genius and has studied law while he was in prison, he realizes that his lawyer hid evidence against him. And because he's now a super genius and even studied law while he was in prison, he realizes that his lawyer hid the evidence that could have gotten him off, and now blames his lawyer for basically costing him the 20 years he had to spend in prison. 20 or 15. He then decides that when he gets out, he's going to spend the rest of his natural life ruining this motherfucker's whole existence, which is exactly what he does. He starts off pretty low by like just, you know, kind of getting on his nerves here and there. Eventually he kills his dog. Then he starts like making passes at his daughter and sort of working his way to possibly have sex with his daughter. He starts like killing people in the lawyer's life, and it just progressively gets worse and worse and worse. And the thing that makes Max Cady so interesting is the same thing that's going to make him do so well when he gets to Oz, is his discovery of philosophy and all this sort of thing. He comes across the idea of the Superman, you know, the Nietzsche idea where you try to create the perfect specimen. Anyway, he tried to become that. While he was in prison, he pushed himself to his absolute physical limits. By his own words, he said that when he was sent to a place where everyone was less than human, he had to become more than human. Physically speaking, he's a monster. At one point, the lawyer hires 3 thugs to go after Max Cady and jump him to sort of scare him off from constantly messing with his family. These thugs come up with chains and bats and pipes and shit, and they start beating the fuck out of Max Cady, and he doesn't even seem to care all that much. He gets up, grabs their weapons, beats the living shit out of them, puts all 3 of them in a hospital, and even though the pipe hits and shit hurt him like a normal person, broken ribs, broken arm, and everything, he still fights them like he can just ignore the breaks. He doesn't care. At one point, the lawyer's daughter takes like some I don't remember if it was like boiling water or wax. I think it was wax. She takes hot wax and she throws it in his fucking face, and it's just and you could see it burning the flesh on his skin, and he just looks at her, doesn't even blink. He's just like, no, like pain means nothing to me anymore. I have become the superhuman that I was trying to become. A super intelligent and physically perfect specimen who is a serial killer and a rapist who has specifically made his sole purpose to ruin your fucking life. How goddamn terrifying is that? this should be a fucking horror movie. I don't really count it as a horror movie, kind of more as a thriller, but I could see if somebody would count it as a horror movie. So how would this motherfucker do in prison? He would dominate goddamn prison, the whole thing. Now, while there's nothing really shown in the movie that Max Cady is the type of person that would want power and control over a prison, he's so far beyond everybody else there, physically speaking, that I think he's just going to take over on accident, to be honest with you. He's absolutely not going to go under anyone. No chance whatsoever. He sees himself as above human. But his physical advantages aren't really the only thing. In terms of social intelligence, he's the highest on this whole list. He was able to break down and destroy this lawyer's entire life while making everyone around him believe that he was a genuinely good person, despite the fact that he went to prison for raping a 16-year-old girl. And he did all of this because he is incredibly charming and manipulative. He was able to destroy a girl's parents' lives while simultaneously seducing her, she was a 16-year-old girl, and convincing her that her parents were actually at fault for everything. He has shown immense amounts of skill at pitting people against each other, manipulating people's emotions and feelings and thoughts, and getting people to believe whatever it is he wants them to believe. All the while seeming like a charming, sophisticated, just swell guy. And while being a tough as nails guy is really going to help him, just like it helped Anton Chigurh as well as Ray Shoesmith, it's really that ability to socially manipulate people is what's going to allow him to survive more so than anybody else. And if the idea is that he is in Emerald City for life, which likely would be the case if he got arrested a second time, especially for the crimes he committed in Cape Fear, there is no doubt in my mind that he will be able to pit all these different characters against each other and essentially become one of the most feared people in the entire prison. I'm not going to say his ability to manipulate is quite to the same level as O'Reilly or Keller, since Ryan is literally shown manipulating fucking everybody, and Keller is shown manipulating a nun into possibly breaking her oath and wanting to sleep with him, as well as being able to manipulate straight men into falling in love with him and becoming gay, just so he can betray them, watch them suffer, and then test himself to do. Okay, so let me explain Keller real quick. I haven't explained Keller yet, but he's a fascinating character. Keller is played by Detective Stabler from Law and Order SUV. I don't remember his name. Or SVU. SV, not SUV. SVU. He's like the baldish Christopher Maloney. That's his fucking name. Anyway, he plays a serial killer of gay men. And the whole thing that he likes is he likes to make people fall in love with him. Then he turns on them, hurts them significantly, betrays them completely, and then tries to get them to continue to fall in love with him. Basically, him not being able to get someone to fall in love with him hurts him like, this is a part of his, he plays these fucked up psychological games with people. There's a character, Beecher, who is not gay. He manipulates Beecher for like half a season, gets Beecher to fall in love with him, then attacks Beecher, breaks Beecher's leg, and beats the shit out of him. Then later on, tries to get Beecher to come back to him, and is like shocked and appalled that Beecher won't come back to him because Keller is so good at manipulating people that he does this shit all the time, and he can always get them to re-fall back in love with him. That's how good he is at manipulating the people around him. And eventually, he does get Beecher to come back to him, despite Beecher knowing that he does this stuff. Keller is arguably the most evil character in the entire show. I think he has the second or third highest body count in the whole show, on top of his just absolute obsession with like breaking people down internally by forcing them to fall in love with him and all that shit. He is super fucking evil. I mean, fuck, a dude who he himself actually admits that he fell in love with, because one of the things about Keller is that Keller can't fall in love with anyone else. He just gets people. He's just obsessed with people falling in love with him, but he can't fall in love with others. He actually falls in love with Beecher, and then once he does that, Beecher gets out of the prison. I forget what season it is, but like halfway through the show, maybe a little past halfway, he actually finishes his sentence and he leaves, and Keller manipulates him to basically commit a crime that he didn't know he was committing and get thrown back in prison because Keller wanted his boyfriend back in fucking prison because he fucking missed them. Keller's great. Keller's a great character. It's really fun. Like, you're gonna start, if you watch this show, you're gonna start realizing that like the worst characters that you could possibly imagine end up becoming like your favorite characters in the show. Oz just has a weird way of doing that to you. But yeah, I haven't talked about him. Super fucking evil character. Maybe I'll put him in some kind of list at some point. But yeah, I'm not gonna say that Max Cady is to that point. Like, he's not that level of manipulative Machiavellian ability, but he's up there. He would probably be like at 3rd place if we put him in the Show of Oz, right under Ryan O'Reilly and Keller. And as far as his physicals go, he'd basically be number 1, with maybe Out of BC being up there with him, possibly, because Out of BC is also a fucking beast. Like, Out of BC at one point gets attacked by the son of the Italian Mafia, as well as the main muscle of the Italian Mafia at the same time. He beats the shit out of both of them, and then rapes the Italian mob boss's son, because he just wants to send an insult to the entire Italian mob. And it works. Look, I get it. It seems weird that I'm praising this show that just sounds like smut, but it's not smut. It's very, very good. Give it a chance. Let yourself take in the debauchery, and you know, you might enjoy it. Max Cady survives. He does really, really fucking well. I think he'll probably damn near take over the fucking prison if he wants to. If he doesn't want to take over the prison, then he'll just be like a super, super successful independent criminal. But if he wanted to take over the prison, he would absolutely be able to do so, and he would be able to do so relatively easily. But that's all we have for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. If you join the membership, you get videos early. And as a bonus, you won't get raped in prison by Adebisi. So, you know, there's a selling point. And as always, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?